Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, folks, just like to welcome you on here onto the first part of the Live Coaching Conference 2021. Obviously, it's in strange times this year, but I think we're probably one of the first counties to grab the bull by the horns and just kind of go online with our conference this year. And we're delighted to welcome on tonight Colm Nally, who's going to go through an excellent webinar. I've seen it earlier on gameplay rehearsals. Firstly, I'd like to thank everyone. I think we've about 270 logged in so far. I think we've about 800 registered, so there'll be a lot of people will be sent on the YouTube clip at the end anyway. So I'm just going to pass it on to Colm Kelly, who is the head of the academy squads in the county, who organised the whole conference. So I'm just going to pass you on to Colm here now.
How's it going, everyone? Listen, just to reiterate what Shane said, it's a great opportunity for learning in these times, and ideally we'd all like to be back in the field, but that hasn't happened and looks like being a bit off. So we're very lucky to have someone of the caliber of Colm Nally tonight. He doesn't really need an introduction, but when people talk about students of the game, he's probably up there to the forefront. His coaching techniques and abilities are second to none, and his know-how in the game is exceptional. So we're very lucky to have him. And look, you're welcome, Colm. So take it away whenever you want, and let's get cracking at it.
Thanks, lads. I'm ready to go, Shane. Yeah.
Do you want to just go straight into the presentation, Colm? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm ready to go. Once you just give me the nod, I'm good.
Okay, where you go, Colm?
Well, thanks very much for the kind words, Shane and Colin. And for the last few years, I've been helping the lads arrange the Louth Coaching Conference. So it's nice now to be on the other side of it, and I'm really delighted to be asked to make a presentation. When the lads contacted me and I sat down and we had a chat about it, I was saying, like, I know the caliber of the coaches that attend these courses, especially the ones that we organise in Louth, and again, our academy coaches and the club coaches. So I was saying, I'm going to try to do something different for them. So it was kind of like a bit of challenge. It was good to use the spare time to try to come up with a different sort of topic. So what I came up with was gameplay rehearsals. Now, what gameplays are, rather than game plans, is moments that happen in games that can change the momentum of a game. But when you look deeper into them, you see that they were rehearsed, and that's why we picked the word rehearsal. A lot of these were rehearsed, but when you execute them, they're not planned. So it's really an interesting concept. Now, the evolution that I've went through as a coach now has seen me starting with under sevens in Newtown Blues, all the way up then to inter-county teams coaching, and like I spent years coaching different teams, and I'm always learning and always have kind of a couple of principles that I stuck with me. Like, for instance, like I always figured I was coaching people who played football, and that didn't matter if they were 7, 17 or 27. I always tried to get to know the person first, and an awful lot of the stuff that we would have done years ago, like kind of stumbled across it, that like making it fun, sort of engaging with the players, giving them challenges, trying to get them to come up with stuff. And that's where this kind of topic came from. I still do a lot of that today. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to look at lots of things that were moments in the game, and you're saying to yourself, that's a game changer or a momentum swinger, but it was rehearsed. So things like that. So that's what we're trying to do. So I have some video clips. Now, I'm aware of online conferences that sometimes these things can lag. So what I've tried to do is I've tried to follow up some of the videos with a still to get the point across, or a slow motion video, then hopefully that will play a little bit better. So we're trying to go through a few of them things for you. So what is gameplays, right? Gameplay rehearsals. So they can be anything, right? So what I've done here, if anybody who's been following Damien Hughes on the High Performance podcast, you'll see that this is his formula: the 5 W's and the 1 H. So what are they? Who comes up with them? When do you use them? When do you need them? Where do we practice and learn them? And how do we coach them? So that's what we're going to be looking at as the night goes on. We're going to kind of stick to that formula, the 5 W's and the H. So with that in mind, right, it's very important as a coach to be very open-minded and to remind ourselves that, like, as a coach, no matter who you're coaching, men, women, boys, girls, it's our responsibility to explore the possibilities of anything. So one of them comes to you with an idea. If you have an idea, explore it, have a go with it, be open-minded, try things, you know. So that's what the nature of the whole presentation will be. You'll see some things that that teams have been trying for years, that teams have only started to do. Some teams fall back on things like that. So we call that probably the ripple effect. And if you can kind of embed some gameplays early on with underage teams, down through the line, they're more open to it as they get older. They want to try things. They're curious about a lot of sort of possibilities. So what are they? Right. So what I class gameplay rehearsal or gameplay is anything. Right. It can be kickouts. It can be restarts, set moves, tactical fouls, formation movements, forward movements, decoy runs, kick out presses, anything. Okay, anything once it's rehearsed, once it's planned, once you've worked on it in training. Now, as I said to you, it's rehearsed, and what I mean by that is, you know, you decide, wouldn't this be a great move? How about trying this? But as a coach, you can't tell the players when to do that. They have to figure that out. So who comes up with these? Right? Who comes up with all these gameplays? It's everyone. Okay. Everybody, right? So in this picture, you can see the kids sitting down with some of the coaches, right? And the dialogue is open. They're talking to the coaches are talking to them, and they're coming up with ideas. So if you're a coach of that, if you're involved in athlete-centered coaching, you're going to be chatting an awful lot to them, getting to the ideas. And what happens is that's how you integrate what's called player-led teams. And player-led teams become a powerful kind of entity. So here are some of the most famous player-led teams around today in sport today. You have Liverpool, the All Blacks, the Toronto Raptors, and the Dublin football team. And these guys now have embedded little set plays and gameplay rehearsals that's taken years to embed, you know, and it's come from constant chatting and reviewing of meetings and stuff like that. So when do we use these? Okay, we can use these anytime. We can use them whenever the game allows. Okay, so you have to coach game awareness, and you have to kind of figure out as a player, right? We have this play, we've rehearsed this, we've worked on this. How come? You know, when can we use them? That's the beauty of football, is that you can't tell them as a coach when to use them, but you can arm them with these scenarios to help them navigate a game and have it navigate the ups and downs of a game. So why do we need these? Okay, that's another question that you have from certain coaches and players. Why would we need these? And lovely term there. It's because it turns moments into momentum. So any gameplay, you know, can just change the pattern of a game. It can just get you back onto the act as a tripwire, get you back onto the path of what you were trying to do. So again, turns moments into momentum. So that's why we would be, you know, using. Where do we practice them? That's an important question, right? Where do we practice? And if you see there, learn, which is very, very important. So when do we learn it? We learn them in the game. Okay, we learn them from opponents. We learn them in training, and we learn them in reviews. Now, one of the things that's hot out there at the minute, believe it or not, is called hot reviews. And a hot review is where you straight away have a chat with one of the players about why did they do that and what did they see, you know, what was the object of your decision there. So what you're trying to do there basically is you're catching the player in rather than catching the player out. So if you see a player doing something good, straight away have a hot review where you're in with them straight away. So the game, I noticed then, if you're talking to players, like for instance, some of the Meath players told me last year when we played Kerry in the championship, that every one of their forwards has a trick nearly before they take a shot or a pass, you know. So they'd have a dummy soul or a dummy hop or anything. Now that's brilliant to have that dialogue between players, that players trust that they can come and say that to you, and that we're all learning together, you know. So we would learn from opponents, we're learning from games, and again in training and in reviews. And hot reviews is when you have a chat with somebody straight away after you've seen them doing something good. So how do we coach these? Now that's the $6 million question, as they say. You know, it's very, very difficult to coach these things. But if you start at a very, very young age, right, what you're really doing is you're really hoping that you can kind of arm all your players with the skills, the many types of skills that they need to become, you know, a footballer that can enjoy the game. I'm not going to use the term elite. I'm just going to talk about footballers of any level, but they can enjoy the game. So there's numerous things that goes into this. So you have your perceptual skills, is what you see, and more importantly, what you don't see. Okay, your visual skills, your spatial awareness, which is your dominant eye. Okay, your search, your quiet eye, your acuity, all that sort of stuff comes from small-sided games and conditioned games, seeing things and talking about things. Your decision making, right? Everybody talks about decision making, okay? So taking on the current event profiles, right? Your action plan profiles and keeping everything in context. Your technical skills, which we always talk about and fall back on, can be your bilateral skills, your movement skills, your motor skills. Okay, and your cognitive skills, okay, that's pattern recognition, right? Recognition in advanced cues, stuff that's happening in front of you. Okay, sport-specific memory skills coming from previous experiences of playing these games, and you know, you creating all these scenarios in training that test all these. So the younger, the better you get kids, boys and girls, playing small-sided games, putting conditions on them, replicating what happens in the games, means they can develop all these skills that you need to add to them when they're coming up with these gameplays. So what we'd be looking at here is you'll be planning your activities, giving them kind of the information beforehand, creating small-sided games that kind of ask them different questions, okay? Put different challenges on the players, or let them try to work it out themselves, you know, give them a say in some of the activities that they do in training. You know, get their feedback again, in, as I said to you earlier on, in hot reviews, instant kind of feedback. What did you think of that game? What would you say you're learning out of the game? How is that applicable to what we try to do in training? You know, use visuals, use kind of different colors, tactics boards, all that sort of stuff. Everything that you can just kind of get your players involved in sort of your decision makings and coming up with these gameplays. So gameplay rehearsals, again, what are they? So you're talking about gameplays versus game plans. Now, completely different things. As I said to you, gameplay is a moment in the game, is a couple of moments in the game. It's something that happens. It's a response to stimulus that players have noticed a certain action happen in the field, and they have something in their locker to pull out. Comes from player-centered coaching. Okay, and player-centered coaching is where the player needs are put first. Okay, so constant chatting to them, open questions, replay value. Now, I really like this. Now, this is a new. If you've anybody, or if you indeed yourself are a big fan of video games, this is a massive seller in video games. Replay value, and what replay value is, once you play a video game, and it's that good, you can't wait to replay it. It's the same with a gameplay in football. And the notes that I have taken down about this gameplay replay value is practices with a high replay value tend to be practices designed by the learners themselves. This leads to ownership by the players, so they're not robots performing someone else's activities. Now, a really, really powerful comment that is. So if you come up with a gameplay that players love, or if the players come up with it even better, right, it means they have ownership of it. Again, another story, when we played Kerry last year in the National League, we had a player sent off about 7 minutes before half time for a black card incident. That meant we start the second half down to 14 men for 2.5 to 3 minutes. So the plan was at half time to try to win the throw in and just keep possession of the ball until we could get back up to 15 men. And it worked, and the players kept it, and they were really, really pleased with it. And that became a call then. That became a gameplay. It was called Killarney, where everybody decided then when you hear that call, you have to keep the ball and move into certain areas to keep the ball. Now that's progressed into other calls and into other movements, but that's the scenario of a gameplay and about a team learning on the hoof and engaging and being open-minded. The tripwire effect, that's very, very important, right? Because if you take the top teams And if things aren't going well for them, right, they need a tripwire to get them back on track. And sometimes a tripwire can be a gameplay that they have rehearsed and planned to execute at some stage in the game. Sir Clive Woodward, when they won the World Cup with England in 2003, he created this concept called teacup, thinking correctly under pressure. So if you see one of your teams and they're under pressure and they execute a gameplay that they've rehearsed, you know that your team is thinking correctly under pressure. And again, they're game changers and they're momentum swingers. Massive in today's games, because if you take an inter-county match that's 70 minutes, right, it's still broke down to numerous moments. So if you have a few of these moments up your sleeve, they're the chance to get you back in momentum, in charge. So again, when we're interested in something, we want to get involved in it. So again, players love this scenario about getting involved in something like this. Players aren't interested in getting involved in getting fit or what we need to do, right? They don't want to get involved in that. They want the information, right? But when you have a chance to swing a game, come up with something creative, right? Players love that and they want to get involved in that. Okay, so how do we do that? So we do that with chit chat. Chit chat. We include them in some sort of parts of the game plan and game execution, right? So we ask them for their opinion. What do they think? How can we make this better, right? We learn from them, as I said to you, like they'll tell you, God, this guy is always doing a dummy solo before he shoots, right? We involve them, so we might give them a little part of the session, or we might include them, we might allow them kind of take over a part of the section, right? The game is the best teacher, as we always say, and that the players are the best students. So again, we are interested in their opinion. Once they know that, they want to be involved. So just before we keep moving on to a view of the videos and that, so this is a typical session plan that I know most coaches here would adhere to. So I just have called this team Crow Park Kick'ems. So it's a football practice, and the session emphasis is on previous game plan or plays, right? Skill top-ups and a prep for the next league opponent. So nothing too rocket science there. But what I really want just to focus on is the highlighted area. Now, during the lockdown, I'm sure everybody's reading books and listening to podcasts like myself, but I came across this basketball coach. He's the head of the basketball of the UK under-20s, and his name is Alan Keane. And I reached out to him several times, and it turns out that he's from Dublin, which was a really pleasant surprise. So he spent a lot of time talking to me about session plans and player-centered coaching, but was very, very quick to acknowledge that really he has 10 to 12 players to focus on when it comes to that, compared to an inter-county panel of 30 plus, maybe a club panel of 24, stuff like that. So it's difficult to replicate exactly what he does. But one of the things he explained to me a lot was that they have part of our session plan dedicated to what's called a recall segment. So what a recall segment is where you can recall recent learnings from your training or from games, and you put them in a part of the session to see has the learning stuck with the players. Now, what they do in basketball a lot, if they feel that the learning hasn't stuck, they don't move on to anything else into the session. They'll just continue to work on that. So I tried to build that in now. Now, I have put it here after the warm-up. You don't have to put it there. You can put it anytime. It can be a Saturday before you play a championship match on a Sunday. But what it is I think it's a powerful segment of training, recall segments. So, for instance, if you have a couple of gameplays and you're really happy with them, right, there's a perfect opportunity to dedicate 15 or 20 minutes with the player-led going through these gameplays, reminding the players. So what our job to do as a coach then is to become a proactive spectator, right? And when we just stand back and we let them come up and coach each other. Now, obviously, you'd have to be within earshot, because if they're talking about putting 15 up front, no defenders, well, stuff like that, you have to be able to butt in and say, no, come on, make it relevant, you know, that way. So again, so a recall segment is very, very, it's new, it's novel, but it's very, very applicable to what we're trying to do as coaches. But again, as I said, you know, from your point of view, to be creative, You don't necessarily have to put it in that segment. Like I have my arrival activities there, for the first 15 minutes. Session really doesn't start till 7:30, and then 15 minutes in, for 15 minutes, we're doing a low impact recall segment, player led. So again, they might call about it. So this might make sense as we go on through the night. Okay. So let's have a look at a couple of these. So what we need now is everybody to be concentrating, and we'll go through a few of these. So it's very important that you know, you have an open mind to this. There's kind of probably a few things here you're saying, well, that's not a gameplay. But what I'll be saying back then to you is, well, that's deliberate what they did there. So they have planned this to a degree, and they've rehearsed it, and now they're executing it. And that's the trick about this. This is what makes these different from game plans and gameplays, is because there's no real set time when you have to execute this, right? It's player led. The players will call it as they see it. You know, now you will perform what we call the R afterwards, which is the after action review. So when you see it, as I said to you earlier on, like the hot reviews, it's kind of you're catching the players in, right? What worked with there? Okay, what would you do the next time? How could you make it better? So the first one we have here now, anybody that's you know, has been on a lot of my presentations probably would have seen this video clip before, right? Basically, what it is, it's just it's a young team. Okay, we're looking at the blue team for anybody that's not familiar. Okay, and basically what they are is, this is a simple gameplay activity that we were done with these when these are 14 and 15 years of age, right? And it's called a rotating attack. So what the idea was that for 10 minutes of the game, that every forward would rotate clockwise after either a shot on goal or be it wide, score, or anything. So what we're looking for here is we're looking to create moments, opportunity moments. Okay, so you can see this attack breaks down, and you'll see a couple of players now pointing. So you can see them moving. So what they're doing is they're moving their positions, and their markers are following them. Now, it's pretty standard. It's pretty bog standard, because it's an entry-level gameplay, because they're very, very young. But what we get out of this is player-led, player ownership, player designed, and young players then become open-minded. Okay, they're willing, they are keen to explore new ones. Okay, now an interesting story about this team, as I keep mentioning, is this team went on to get to the under-16 Louth Championship final a few years back. On our way down to it, the bus broke down. So there was panic stations. When we eventually arrived, I had to drive down myself. So there was a big scramble to get the players. And when we eventually got them down there, we had 5 minutes to throw in. So we had no time to warm up. So there was panic stations. But after 5 or 10 minutes into the game, we had 2 or 3 players out of position. So I'd be running onto the field, and I'd go to one of the forwards and say, "Who moved you out?" And he said, "It's our gameplay. It's what we worked on all year." I had cleanly forgotten about it because of the bus broken down, but the players hadn't. So if you look at that last clip there, just finished there, this is what this possibilities happens here. Creates mismatches. So you have a big player on a small player for a moment. You have fellas in unusual positions. Again, players call it, players execute it whenever they want. Now we'll change it up a little, and we'll go to a little bit more advanced. This year's All-Ireland final. Okay, now there's an incredible picture. Neil Scully and Dean Rock, look at the two of them off the pitch. Okay, now they come onto the pitch, and they're both sprinting forward. Now there's so much you can take from this clip. Okay, so much you can take from it. And again, there's a still of it, just in case the video lagged. So what you have there is you have a team making the pitch bigger. Now, lots of coaches say that when you have the ball, you're trying to make the pitch as big as possible. When you lose the ball, you're trying to make the pitch as small as possible. So that's an operational attack. So was this just for Mayo? Okay, there's so much in it, right? If you can even look at the Mayo defenders, one is touch tight, one is standing off. Okay, where Dublin expected Mayo to man mark certain players, and as a result, these were decoy moves. Now, but most importantly, who decided to do this? Okay, where this is what I hope people can pick up now from the likes of this now is that's a game play, right? That's been rehearsed, but you can't say in 20 minutes we're going to do that, right? Somebody has to call it. Somebody has to. So basically, a team has to respond to a stimulus to do this. Okay, so that has to come from player-led groups, players that are talking. So what you're after seeing there in the last couple is you're after seeing a novice gameplay and advanced gameplay. Now one leads into the other. So the earlier you can start exposing players to these scenarios and allowing them come up with their own, the more that creativity and the more likely they're going to come up with a few sort of ones that we never even thought of. So were these two planned? They were probably worked on and planned to a degree in training, okay? Who decided when to play them, right? So again, that's the players you would hope that's calling them. Like there's nobody, like it's very, very simple, right? But as I said, your players must respond to a stimulus that they face. So if you're a coach on the sideline and you're roaring at one of your players to rotate after the score, by the time that reaches his ears, right, he's had 1,000 thoughts going through his head. So it's him that has to respond to something and call it. So who executes that call? Okay, is there an agreement that there's 3 or 4 leaders in the group who will kind of execute these? And again, you're looking to catch your players in and not out. And that's when the power of a hot review is important, where when you've seen that clip, you could say to people, that's brilliant. That was magnificent the way you made that pitch so big. So what you're doing then is you're reinforcing it and it'll stick. Now, again, I don't know if people have noticed that before, right? But that was one of the first things I seen when watching that match, because I'd be lucky enough to get a lot of the access from behind the goals, and that tells you so much. But that's bespoke and that's exclusive to them. Now, what we need to do as coaches is like every good coach and every good player will be taking ideas from different teams. You take something from that yourself, something that you can bring into your team. But it's a powerful exhibition of creating space. But again, as I say, a gameplay that's been rehearsed. Right. Now, here's some couple of clips, right, where I call them helping your teammates out. Again, these are moments, split moments, but these are certainly rehearsed. So if you can keep an eye on James McCarthy here now. Now, this is difficult to see, but he blocks 2 players' runs while Conor Catlin goes to catch the ball. So he's created an extra yard or half a yard for him to get in front of his man to win the ball for a catch. There's the first step, and there's the second pull. Right, it happens that quickly that you can't see it. So what we'll do then is we'll put it in slow motion, okay? And you can see the difference. Now, there's a step in, look, takes him out for a yard, okay? Just in case his man is going to get under the break, he just tugs his arm. Now, they're gameplay movements, and that's rehearsed. And again, they have to respond to something to carry that out. So just in case you think I'm being pedantic and don't believe me, here's another one, okay? And this time it's with Paddy Small. So they're attacking. Paddy Small is in the D. You've got 2 teammates behind him. He'll help one out. Okay, very clever and has to be applauded, right? But again, rehearsed. You're there only split seconds. We play it again in slow motion. So there you can see him just stepping in. That's all you need to do now at that level, right? To buy that man a yard. Now, a couple of things about that is when you look at that, and we have the beauty of replays and going over them again, that is full of non-verbal communication. So that's looking at each other, sensing what they're going to do. We've done it 1,000 times in training. Okay, you just hold your own, I'll buy you a yard. Okay, so simple gameplay that's player driven. So it's very important that we know a couple of these things. So it's simple things done well, but you must remember there's a difference between simple and easy. Where what them lads did looked very simple. It's not easy to do it. It comes from a lot of practice. It comes from a lot of passing on information and passing on experiences. So They're high performers, and what high performance really is 1% of the 1% and sticking to it. Now that's only what happened out there is only a tiny bit of that whole play going over the ball, over the bar. Okay, and it was a back towards an attack. He wasn't even looking at it, but he stuck to the plan. So to perform like that, what performance is potential minus interference. So that's where we come in. We have to let the players explore these things. We have to let them figure it out themselves. We can't be telling them, now you should move here, you should step there. That doesn't work like that. Okay, so again, we want them to perform. So it's the potential that that move has minus air interference, right? Theirs. So again, you become a proactive spectator in all of this. Again, what your role as a proactive spectator is to hang around the periphery when it's in the recall segments or whatever, okay? And only if they come up with something stupid should we get involved, okay? So like that is you don't push the players, you pull them along, okay? You just nudge them and let them find out a few ways themselves. So next one is pull one from the locker. So if you're coaching underage players and you're developing a mindset where it's athlete led and they're involved and they have a say, what happens is the chances of some of their gameplays is sticking, and the chance for them to repeat and the chance they have to pass them down to new teammates becomes apparent and becomes powerful. Now we've all seen these clips. So this one from the 2014 All-Ireland semi-final, Michael Murphy flick on, okay, from a kick out, a really fast counter attack. Gameplay, okay, there was a decision, somebody called it, somebody executed. So now you fast forward to 2019, the Super 8s, different goalkeeper, same full forward coming out, same tap down, almost the same result. And again, last year in 2020 against Dublin in the league, same thing. And again, you can have a good look at Ryan McHugh there, making his move because he knows it's happening. So there's a gameplay that has spanned 7 years with the one team. Okay, I know there's been one key player to it all the time, but the point is that they're allowed explore these scenarios. They're allowed work on them. They're allowed pass them on. So what you really have then is a couple of these things. Like a good moment can be used again and again and again. Okay, once that culture of open-mindedness, sharing and learning is passed on, and you can see that's evident there. So that's in their locker. They can pull it out when they see fit. So going back to gameplay rehearsals, okay, a few little comments. Jose Mourinho likes to call it guided discovery. Is where he sets up scenarios and he sets up things in training, and players have to figure them out and come up with solutions. Okay, right? So you give them a toolbox. So your job as a coach is to give all these players a toolbox, okay, full of all these plans, but they're to figure out how to fix it. Okay, so just like what we watched there a minute ago, you've got fall back plays, stuff that they can fall back. That again, if you think of the earlier slide that I showed, fall back plays are tripwires, stuff to get you back into the game that might swing the momentum back to you. Okay, again, communication channels, verbal and non-verbal. But if you have game plays and if you've rehearsed them, your teams must communicate to execute them, which is a brilliant way of opening them communication channels, right? And again, we call it at times solution-based coaching. So what solution-based coaching is a list of problems that happen on the field. Okay, we can come up with them as coaches, but we don't come up with the answers. We get the players to figure out the answers, but you must give them the space and you must give them the environment where they can explore the answers of these. So we'll go through one or two more. Okay, now this is probably one of the most famous movements in football today. So simple, Conor McManus is V cut, out and turned back. Now the beauty about the likes of this is the dogs in the street knows that he makes that runs, but they're still very, very hard. So we'll play it again in slow motion for you. So you can see straight away what's in the mind. He's looking for him straight away and bang. Now, perfect hand pass into his path, a one-handed bounce. without breaking a stride, and in. Now that's definitely rehearsed. Okay, that's definitely rehearsed. That can't be planned because, again, you don't know when the situation is going to arise to allow you to do that, right? So it's very, very interesting. So here's a video that you might find interesting, and this is, you know, a simple how early entry activity into training, but you're working on V cuts. So the first phase of it is quite simple. Here you're just demonstrating it. So it's just a one group will show you what to do. A foot pass out. It's unopposed. Okay, you can see the cut there and the weighted hand pass putting his pass. Okay, so again, just demoed. Foot pass, collect, V cut, and the weighted hand pass. Now we bring all the team in. And what we do with the whole team is we just make it a little bit chaotic because there's balls flying everywhere. So it's the same thing. And what we're just doing here now is you're just working on that type of movements. Now, what has to happen here is they'll never develop that skill unless you get it into some sort of game and you look for it. And again, if you get that hot review and you see a fella making a V cut, a proper weighted hand pass, that's when you speak to him and you thank him. Now you see this progressed there now, where we finish it off with the receiver of the feed cut after the feed cut takes a shot on goal. So you can see the progressions that we've made going through that. So that's very, very simple, right? So what we're doing is we're training about it, we train it, we talk about it, we train it, and we might throw that in our recall segment of training. V cuts, that could be one day. If the players decide, you could say the players might come to us as coaches and say, listen, I want to do a little bit of work on the V cut. And you say, okay, what are you suggesting? He comes up with something. And what that is that's just kind of reinforcing and rehearsing a gameplay. So what's important about the likes of this is the learning zone and the performance zone. So your learning zone is where you work on your technical activities. So that was sort of what we were doing there was a technical activity. That was more so the learning zone. And the performance zone could be competing games with little coaching. Now, if you're involved with an adult team, let's say, or even a county team, or even a competitive or another 16 team that you've got league games and championship games up, right? It's very difficult for you to get your coaching in them games because there's a competitive edge to them, and most lads probably want to win them, right? But the learning must come in games as much as possible. So what I would like to do, like I'm not a big fan myself of in-house games or challenge matches unless they have an added value to them. And what I mean by that is if you are playing a challenge match, right, you might decide we want to work on some of the stuff we rehearsed on. And then it becomes a valuable tool. So a couple of things I would like to do is like at times is video them matches specifically to see what you worked on. So what we have here now is a full press practice. So this was a challenge match that the light blue team was involved in last year, and what we were working on was trying to learn and rehearse a full court press. Now, we probably overdid it in terms of doing it for every kick out, but the point was we wanted to record what went well, what went wrong, what could we report, what could we improve on, and we were doing that via a review mechanism. So we recorded this, we broke it down to 9 kick out clips, what went well, what didn't go well, what was the risk associated with this one, right? And again, when we would apply that into a real match, the players decided when to do it. The players had to decide when to execute it, when to call it, and when to play it. So again, very, very simple. We were talking about the use of hands, the areas, okay, overloading one side, creating these moments, okay? So you can see that. So we have lots to work on there. You could talk about that kick out, what went well, what didn't. Kick out 2, the same. Who wasn't in position quick enough? What could I've done better? Who broke, who didn't? Were we lucky here? Right, loads and loads of information into it. And players respond to the visual that this was. They seen it, they felt it. Okay, so again, another one, again, you can see clearly the use of hands, you can see clearly what we're trying to rehearse. Okay, now again, for this video and for this game, we probably, as I said to you, there was an overload aspect to it because we purposely wanted to get a couple of things out of it. So kick out 4, again, the same. They're only short videos. So you can see, again, how quickly the opposition were closed down and how uncomfortable we were making it for them. Okay. So here's the risk element. So by this kick out, what you're seeing here is that if it doesn't pay off, you know, how are you leaving yourself wide open, or how vulnerable you are, the risk associated with it. So again, you have to decide against the risk and reward scenario of it. So again, a powerful exhibition of the use of a video, you know, getting value from it in terms of videoing from behind the goal. Okay, and again, the learnings of it, the players having a hot review, players having after action review about what went well, why it went well, why it didn't go well, etc. So to do things like this, you need what's called competitive courage. Okay, so they have to be willing to have this a go. So you can see the pressure that this is putting on, but that's like, in terms of learning, it's powerful. All right, so here's a clip of what happens if it goes well and the potential that you can get from it. So by videoing the likes of these matches, you get loads and loads of opportunities to see your gameplays work out. You can see an awful lot of the stuff that, you know, moments that change the game. Just one or two more in this videos, because they're important to see, you know. So here's a chance of if you get a proper press, what can happen? What's the possibilities? So you've got traps, you've got tackling, you've got work rate, you've got everything, and you're reinforcing it by fellas just reviewing the video themselves. So 3-on-1 there, great possibility of a high field turnover. And then the last one would be a clip of when we don't tune in, I think. Yeah, so you can see that the possibilities, lots and lots for players to take away from that. So again, when we switch off for number 10. So loads of learning in that, and loads of opportunities to review. So one of the things that we would like to do with players when we're doing things like this is you've got to create your own language and your own visual. So a couple of things you would work on is lots and lots of clubs and counties come up with now their own visuals of how to a pitch is laid out, so they can create their own type of language and get their messages across pretty quickly about what areas need to be sort of filled, what areas need to be vacated, you know, who should be where at when. And it's instant messaging, and the players come on with their own speak, and they can communicate freely during the pitch about where the presses should be. Should they be an L4, C4, R4, things like that. Lots and lots of teams come up with their own ones, but that's just a snap one that we use. So it's important to realise for the likes of these any gameplay rehearsals, be it the V-cuts, be it the flick-ons, be it the decoy runs, be it the taking the man out, that there's a benefit and a cost to every decision. Okay, so what I mean by that is, like, if you look at the oh shit moments, as we call them, back in the number 5 kick out, there is a if it's not executed right, there's a possibility of a team being exploited. So again, for every gameplay, there's a benefit and a cost to every decision, and that's why it's important to review it, and that you flip it on its head and say, well, if we don't do it properly, you know, there's a possibility of this happening. Okay, so a nice quote that came along about a lot of soccer teams really is that we practice and play in the zoo rather than the jungle. So the jungle, to me, would represent the game. So that's why when you get these challenge matches or in-house matches, add value to them by working on some of your gameplay rehearsals, because you can all execute them in the zoo, in the training zones, you know, but it's the practice zones you want to get them. And again, when you settle on some gameplay rehearsals, when the players come up with a few of them, it's very important that they commit fully to the choices that they make in a game. Because we all know, if you don't commit fully to the choices you're making in the game, well, then there's a chance that it doesn't carry on. So that would be key to a lot of that. So again, spot and act in the game. So playing an in-house match, right? What we have here is we've one team set up to mimic what an opponent might play with, and the other team has to just try to break it down. So there's lots of good stuff in the likes of this video, is where you see an awful lot of your game plays that you've rehearsed coming through. Now these could be simple things like emptying out and filling in, swinging the ball from one side of the pitch to the other, taking the ball into the tackle, or not taking the ball into the tackle. These are all things that you've rehearsed, and these are all moments within games and within minutes that might just swing momentum or take back, you know, the game in your direction. So you can practice patience, you can practice skill sets, you can do everything you want in it. But there's loads and loads in this. So you can see this scenario. What's happening here is, you know, one team is trying to break down the other. The other team is probably set up very, very defensive to mimic something that that team is going to play. And this team has to try to break it down. And one of the ways we like to break these things down is when you're swinging a ball from left to right, you're also tiring the opposition out, okay, mentally and physically. So you're waiting to exploit a chance where you can attack down the center. You get to the back post, like that moment that you're talking about, and bang, in the back of the goal. So lots and lots of gameplay rehearsals in that. And to take one of the practice zones, the learning zones activities is simple. You're creating these scenarios in training where you can kind of coach a player the importance of running to the back post, you know, and supporting the move, because there are the moments that swing games for you. So we talked earlier on about player-centered coaching. So just want to touch on that before we move on. So I know I'm mindful that we probably have some coaches from underage teams on here. So what we have is player-centered coaching. Earlier on, you'd be telling the players what you want to do, where you want them to run. Okay, as they progress, you ask more open questions. What were you thinking of when you moved there? What did you see when you had that ball in your hand? Would you do anything different again? Okay, and then again, as they get older again, you're discussing. So you're listening to what they are saying. You're probing them to give certain answers. Okay, and you're asking again, leading questions. And then when you think you have the players and the teams up to the level, your job is to scan, step back, and observe. Now, scanning as a coach is numerous things, right? It's not just what happens in the game. It's watching the players arrive. It's watching body language of players. It's watching who celebrates when you score, who doesn't when we miss, things like that, right? So scanning is everything, okay? But for player-centered coaching is, again, you want to get them up to that stage where your job on a Tuesday and Thursday night is really, really scanning, step back and observe, and see, are they putting in place the things that we discussed. So as a coach, it's a partnership between you and the players. You're both learning and growing, okay? And it's very important. And again, as we go back to earlier on, some of the questions some of the videos we've shown, like the players were given license and were given areas to grow, to come up with some of them solutions. So for us as a coach, we would be learning from the players, and we would be taking on board, not everything, but a lot of their ideas. We'd be giving them an area where they can kind of explore and sort of be curious about some of the things that they face in the pitch, and they can put them in place. But for us, we need to kind of, you know, always trying to be finding out a few bits of information. You would be planting little, as I said, guided discovery, like Jose Mourinho. You'd be coming up with scenarios, coming up with games that the players, you know, you don't tell them why you're playing these games. Okay, you see, can they figure out some of them, and then you'll be having a discussion about it. So what I like to do, it's not for everybody, but I would be kind of sourcing lots of information as much as possible, and I look at different sports. Now, there's a couple of these books that are out now at the minute, and they're just kind of soccer coaching books and basketball strategies, hockey games as well. But it's the language that they use in them that's very, very applicable to the likes of this gameplay rehearsals, because things like in the Pep Guardiola book there, they're looking at pass and rondos to find a way of exploiting a 3 versus 2. Now, we don't talk enough about that in the field, about when we have 3 players in one area and how we can kind of exploit that too. Now, that's split-second stuff. That's moments. but they spend so much time practicing exploiting moments that we can take so much from that. Okay, and again, that's where the guided discovery comes in. The players have to figure out what to do when we see that we have a chance to exploit this. And this mightn't be in front of the goal, this could be out in the wing, but it's just getting you from one area to the field as quick as possible. So it's always good to sort of explore different sports. But again, as I said to you, that word that I've used a bit tonight, value. There has to be value in what you're reading if it's going to be applicable to some of these gameplay rehearsals that we spoke about. So almost finished there now. A couple of takeaways for you is create an environment, right, to learn, right? Culture. That's very, very important, okay? Space to experiment. So if you can find a space and an environment where players can pick up a few ideas, where they feel comfortable coming up with some of their suggestions, where they have noticed things in the field that you may not notice, and they bring them to you and say, listen, I noticed that a team does this or team does that. Dual curiosity, as we call it. You have to be curious to continue to learn. They have to be curious to continue to learn, because after all, everybody will be sort of improving together. So it's a partnership between coaches and players. And it goes back to the first point there about that environment. The players need to be comfortable that they can share these things with you. Now, obviously, there has to be value to everybody, every suggestion. And I think that's our job, really, is that we have to siphon out certain things that might have no value to the team, or that mightn't be a good idea, but we can do that in a roundabout way. And if you affect the person, you affect the performance. So a player now, if that's listened to, will feel that he has sort of, that you care for him, that you're looking at him more than just a footballer. He's a person. So again, he opens up, and all that really just affects the player as a whole. Moving on. So that's kind of me sort of finished, but it's important to realize that gameplay rehearsal creates what we call magic moments, and it's magic moments that win the games. So gameplays aren't planned, but they are rehearsed. So there's a difference there, you know. Now again, they can be anything. We showed you a few snapshots of them earlier on of sort of what works for certain teams. Now there's no point in us kind of just trying to recreate like what we've seen with Niall Scully and Dean Rock. It may not work for us. It depends, you know, who you're playing against. You know, will a team buy it? Will a team follow you out there? If you look at the blocking of the runs, people say, "Oh, that's not really gameplay." It's definitely rehearsed, right? It's not easy to do. It looks very, very simple, but again, that comes from years and years of in-house games, of them practicing it. You look at Conor McManus's V-cut. You look at Michael Murphy's flick on. Okay, an awful lot of rhetoric would go around that when Murphy moves out of the full forward line, he might not be as dangerous as in there, but then he's just as lethal by flicking on balls and doing stuff like that. Okay, you can see the kick out press, the importance of it. You're seeing the young team rotating. Okay, they have complete ownership of that, when to execute it. You know, they call it. And what happens then is if they get a little bit of success out of that, they're open-minded to any future game plays that you might come up with, or they may be very, very comfortable coming to you with some game plays. So again, explore it and make room for it, build it into your sessions. Now again, if you go back to the training sessions that I had earlier on there, the recall session, it doesn't have to be the second part after the warm-up or the first part. It can be at the end of the session. It can be a nice summer's day. You can take a Saturday before you play your championship match. It can be any time, okay? But the most important thing I feel with the likes of a recall segment is that if you are introducing something new, that you need to come back at it from time to time. So you can get me if anybody's interested on any of the socials. I would kind of share a lot of content like that on the socials. So I haven't put anything about this presentation up on it yet, but it's just because we wanted to keep it for tonight and use it for here. But you can get me if you want any further information on any of the socials, and that's basically it. So I'm not sure if Shane or the lads want to open up for a text type questions. So if you are, I'm happy to try to answer any of them.
Yes, Colm, that was an excellent presentation. Thanks very much. I think I know my phone's hopping here. A lot of people, a lot of positive feedback. Just if anyone has any questions, just feel free to type them into there's a question mark just in the text box there, and we'll get through as many as we can. Colm, just before we go on, I had someone text me, any cues on maybe for looking for calls for underage teams, like nice and simple things that underage teams might be, instead of place names and stuff that they might forget. Is there any kind of codes that you might use for underage teams?
Yeah, like as I said, the one that we use there is like if you see like that the rotating forwards, okay. So again, what we were doing really basically is, you know, just messing around a couple of days, and the players were kind of coming up with a couple of scenarios. So they decided about, now that morphed into different type of things. They decided like we were going to go that only after every score would they move, and then the players took ownership to say no, we'll do it for 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, and they would call it as they see it. So that team would also have certain kick out sort of calls, and what the calls were, as you say, we were trying to avoid verbal calls, we were trying to avoid signals, we were trying to avoid sort of touching your right sock, stuff like that. So we're trying to come up with some other ones. So what we did decide was basically, right, was we had a twofold things. So we would have a kick out that would be instigated by a movement of a defender. So if number 5 moved, right, the ball was going in a certain direction first. If number 7 moved, the ball would be going in another direction. Now the movement that they did was very, very kind of minimal, but it was enough for the keeper to realize what we were trying to do, and the players respond. Another thing that we did, and that we would do an awful lot of with smaller kids and underage coaching, is I would put several different color cones around the pitch. So you could have a red cone on the 45, a blue cone on the 20, and on the opposite pitch you could have a green and a red, and you would call 2 colors, and them 2 players nearest to them were to move in that direction of the ball, just to create movement. So the learning for that was that you were showing the kids that if you move in a certain area, it creates a pocket of space here and a pocket of space there. So we would color code calls, and obviously in a game you wouldn't have the cones on the side of the pitch, but the players would remember where they were placed. So if they heard blue and red, 2 players would move in a certain direction to create an opportunity for the goalkeeper to get his kick out away. Is that okay?
Yeah, Colm, just David come in there. Excellent presentation. How many gameplays would you possibly try in a challenge match?
It depends. Okay, so like it's very important. I hope I try to make it clear tonight. Like, there's a huge difference between a game plan and a gameplay. Like playing a sweeper or dropping 10 and 12 is a game plan. Okay, so you know you'd be working on the likes of that. If you want your forwards to line up in a certain formation, like the pencil formation or whatever, that's a game plan, right? Now a gameplay, as I said, is moments. So what I would do is I would try as much as possible. So if you're looking at sort of decoy runs, if you're looking at blocking runs, if you're looking at feed cuts, if you're looking at that, but what I would do an awful lot of is I would do hot reviews. The moment I seen one, I'd be talking to the player about it. So you're reinforcing it, and I'd be talking about it in a positive way. So my main objective would be, that was brilliant. What did you think? Why did that work? What would you do next? How will we make this better? Right, but a hot review straight on. So I would try as much as possible. Now that clip that I showed of the pressing of the videos, I would call that an exaggeration, the pressing, because there's no way you would be able to do that in a game. But the learning out of that was phenomenal. Like, we got 10 presses out of that. Some worked, some didn't. So you could kind of break down, why did that not work? And you could find for one moment, one player didn't step up to the correct position. One player didn't use his hands. They're the moments that we talk about. They're the gameplays. So that's the sort of information. So in a challenge match, right, I would over egg everything, as I said, to get a value out of it. Or an in-house match. A lot of teams play in-house matches, but they're not great. You could have a cornerback and a corner forward not touching the ball for large parts of the game. So there's no value in that whatsoever. So if you're playing in-house matches or challenge matches, there must be value out of them. So by adding a gameplay or targeting a gameplay, you get massive sort of learnings from it. So I would try a lot of rehearsals, but again, gameplay rehearsals, I've tried a lot of them in challenge matches, but I hope fellas are picking up, people are picking up on tonight. We're trying to nudge the players to come up with them. You might throw one or two, you might show videos like this today, but you're nudging the players to sort of come up with their own. You're nudging them, you're trying to get them to come to you. Would you look at this if we try this in training? And believe me, right, under 14s would have a load of ideas. You know, so if you can get them engaging with you, and if you can create sort of recall segments where they learn, and when there's space in your training for them to sort of be creative, the whole the potential of that is massive.
Yeah, just another one in there from Seamus. Colm, what age would you recommend working on game plans and game plays with underage teams?
Well, game plays, I go as early as possible, not game plans. Like, and what a gameplay is, as I said to you, is just creative stuff. Okay, so for instance, the underage one, okay, you could have them all rotating different positions. Okay, trying to create that mismatch. And it's simple. That simple one that I showed you earlier on, right, was what we could get out of that was to get the players to look for that and exploit that mismatch that you have created by that gameplay. So I would start gameplays very, very young. Now, a gameplay can be a dummy solo, right, to sell your man and go buy it. So it's about being creative. A gameplay can be, as we've seen, for one moment, that V cut by Conor McManus. That can be, you know, if you get another 10 or another 12 with having the awareness of what a V cut run is, or what a spin or what a show and go is, they are moments, okay? And then what we do is we add on to that by saying to the players, did you see his movement? Did you see his run? And stuff like that. So I would start gameplays very, very young. Not so much game plans. I think gameplays still do enough to, you know, cross over the sort of technical aspect that you're improving the player as a technical, you know, you're improving the technical skills as much as everything else.
And just another, how long would you kind of spend in your training sessions on that with underage teams, Colm?
Yeah, well, so what we'd always do, like as I said to you, I always think of the Forrest Gump saying about life's like a box of chocolates. When you take under the sevens team out, I love them coaches that get involved with under sevens and under sixes and things like that, because there's no ego attached to anything, because you don't know what you have. You're down there, right, because you're down there because of the person, which is the kid, and you want them to have a positive experience of playing football with their local club, and you're enjoying it too, and it's a win-win situation. As they get older, they get more competitive, things change. So I would spend, particularly as they get older, like I'd never do anything without the football. Everything that I'd be doing would be with the football. Try to get the games as much as possible, right? But you have to have a learning zone part of your training, which is your technical skills. And sometimes that looks like lines, and sometimes it looks like kind of cues. Not a whole lot wrong with that if there's only a part of it in your training, because that's where the learning is. So it depends what level they're at. So the younger they are, you have to do more sort of technical work with them, and then you have to get game scenarios into them. But that changes as they get older. There should be more games and less of that sort of technical end of it. So I'd spend a lot of time with that. Now, again, even now with adults, I'm trying to build in that recall segment. So the recall segment can be simply this: a move that worked very, very well on the football pitch, and you like it, and you say to yourself, you know what, we're going to keep that. So let's see, can we replicate that, and have we learned, and can we make it better? So I would do a segment of that every night in training. But as I said, maybe right now you're looking at a 10-15 minute segment. You can have whole recall segment sessions, right? If you have, let's say, a walkthrough session, if you have a big match coming up on a Sunday and you're training on a Thursday or Friday and you can't do much, it's perfect for what's called recall. So you could have 3 or 4 activities that you're recalling and you're practicing. Now, as I said to you, Alan Keane told me, the basketball, that he'd always plan a session, but he's often never moved on to another part of the session because they weren't getting what they worked on previously right. So again, it depends what your target is.
Yeah, just two more, more questions that are coming there. How many kickouts possibly would you use for under 13s and under 14s? And just this next part, I think Willie asked, how would you build culture into a team?
Okay, right. It depends what age you're at, but for the underage, for the kickouts, right? Look, see, there's various stages of learnings for kickouts, and basically, if you even take the likes of Stephen Cluxton, like when Stephen Cluxton came into to the Dublin team, he wasn't half as accurate as he is now. So he's learned, the players around him learned, they've improved. But most importantly, they've been given that space to improve, and they've sought improvement. Okay, and an awful lot of what he has did has been driven by himself. So that's the first thing. So an awful lot of kickouts people misunderstand is based on movement of the outfield players, not the goalkeeper. The goalkeeper obviously has to have the accuracy, right? And he can practice and work on that accuracy and distance as much as he wants. But if the movement isn't good, okay, then his options are limited. Now, what a lot of teams have is one or two go-to kickouts. And that could be, as you said, you see into Dublin, if they lose 2 or 3 kickouts, they have a go-to kickout where it's down to Brian Fenton, okay, and it's very, very successful, right? So I would have a repertoire of about 10 or 12 kickouts, right? Now, the thing about having a repertoire of 10 or 12 kickouts, it would take you about 2 or 3 years to coach them. So you would have up to about 6 done 1 year, and when they're really fine-tuned, and when you have them really happy and you're off, you would find another 1 or 2 onto that every year. And that's where the teams like Donegal and Dublin, right, they add to that every year and every year. And that comes down to the culture, right? So culture comes from little things like standards and values that you put on things. So as an underage coach, if you value participation first over winning, that creates the culture of people being involved and people wanting to come. If you create a fun environment where people are coming down here and they're leaving with smiles on their faces and they're enjoying what they're doing, that creates culture. And that allows you then to build onto that in an education format of educating them and upskilling them to play football. Okay, but an awful lot of people make mistakes where they put them two first rather than the enjoyment and the person first. If you look at, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but if you look at the explosion of ladies football in Ireland, and if you look at the explosion of lady coaches, and they're brilliant because they're there for the person. They have no ego. They want every kid to enjoy it and every kid to get the same. So if your club starts with 5 or 6, 7 or 8-year-olds, that has to be your first starting point for culture. Everybody gets a game. Everybody's included. Plus, we have to monitor the training they're doing as well, which is all bilateral, which is all skill-based, and again, age appropriate, which is, it sounds easy, but it's not. So I would go down the lines of that, building culture. In an adult formation, little things like this is timekeeping. Now, it mightn't sound a whole pile, but if somebody's 10 minutes for training and are late for training, 10 minutes for training every single night, they're basically saying that my time is more important than your time. And that's showing disrespect. So little things like that. If you have a 7:30 training, everybody's in the pitch at 7:30. We will have mistakes. There'll be people that's caught in traffic and all that. But I'm talking about if somebody's constantly late or rolling down, that's not how you build culture. They're little things. Okay, that's them saying my time's more important than yours, as I said. So everybody there on time. Okay. Now team identity. Wearing the same gear, okay, playing for the same values. You're playing for your community. You're playing for your area. We work hard. We stand for this. We've got good manners. We've got that. That's how you. And if you can kind of keep your behaviours and values to the fore, that's the starting point for creating culture.
Yeah, just do you think there's a part for a coach to carry a gameplay book with them? And then another question on it would be, do you think you get merit out of showing video clips of teams doing certain things, and added on to that is the throw-ins? Would that be a gameplay, or would you have 2 or 3 different variations on it?
So you have the playbook, you have the throw-in, and what was the middle one?
The other one was for a coach to carry a gameplay.
Playbook, and I just, because I took my mind off there. So playbook, the throw in, and there was something in the middle there, Shane, sorry.
I see another one here. I'll throw it in, another one at you. Would you put gameplay just on defensive play, not just attacking play?
Yeah, okay, right.
So gameplays for defenders.
So yeah, I would think, right, I think that again, I have to be careful what I say. Like a playbook, yeah, very, very important. I think coaches should have a playbook now, but what a playbook should be, right, should be every coach should have a sort of a diary of experiences that he's gone through all from one year to the next, certain things that worked, certain things that didn't work. Okay, now again, it's not as simple as A goes to B and B goes to C. It's not as simple as that, right? It's from different experiences, tight pitch, windy day, rainy day. So a playbook should encompass all them type of things. Okay, now I still think probably people are picking up a little bit of game plans versus game plays. Game plans are different. Like I said, game plans are, you might play with an extra defender, you might play with a sweeper, you might just play with a third midfielder, things like that. They're game plans. They're deliberate ways of you alternating your formations to either give you an extra defensive platform or or an extra hold in the middle. Right. Well, what I'm trying to talk about is game plays, right? So, for instance, a throw-in would be a game play where you could have the ball flicked back towards the referee, and if it's won, it's kicked straight in. Now, that's a game play, right? That's a moment, right? Now, again, you've rehearsed on it, right? You've rehearsed that. You've decided that if we win the ball, this is what we're going to do. So the knock-on effect of that is the full forward knows the ball's coming in directly. The centre forward probably would vacate that position. The corner forwards might do a lightning strike run. So you've got numerous things that come from a gameplay, but it's all based on you winning the ball. You don't win the ball, then you don't have that gameplay. But yeah, definitely, there's 3 or 4 you can come from throw-ins. Even sideline balls, we would do an awful lot of work on sideline balls, working on long, fast, and safe. So 3 different options every time a man takes a sideline ball. Excuse me. But he decides what to do. He decides which one to play based on the information and the stimulus that he has seen in front of him. Okay, so our job is to give him that toolbox, as I said, but his job is to decide for himself. So that's gameplay. Gameplay is where you've explored all these decisions. So again, if you look back on the Paddy Small one, right, his back is towards the attack. He's not even looking at the ball coming in. So he has decided, listen, we have worked on this. We've rehearsed on this. I'm going to step in front of the fullback to give you a yard. Right. Now, that is brilliant, right? But that is player-led, Shane. You know what I mean? The players have decided to do that. So I would add that to my playbook, right, that I carry around me as that coach says, right? But again, I can't roar out, you're doing this play now. You can't do that. Right, because you don't know what's going to affect before they have to do that. They have to spot that stimulus. But what I'm saying is you could have done that in the learning zone that we spoke about, working that in the learning zone, but you will only fine tune it in the performance zone, which is your matches. So that's why I would say, like, you could go out to a challenge match or an in-house match and say, see, can you block a few runs? Okay, so you're giving them targets, you're giving them goals in challenge matches. Then you're getting value at your challenge matches.
Yeah. Okay, and just I know the other one was, do you think a video clip like you showed might be merit to?
Without doubt, I'll tell it. I remember. See, again, as I said to you, when we took over the young players, it was like a box of chocolates. You hadn't a clue what you're doing. But couple of things we decided to do, Ross, we would bring them every year on a trip. Now, that trip might have consisted to see Louth playing Croke Park. Might have consisted because the Leinster Council did great packages there where every player got in for €3 for a Leinster final. So we would bring them there. And I remember bringing small kids up to see a Leinster final. And the next day in training, I seen 2 or 3 kids hand pass a ball over a player's head and run on to catch it because I seen Alan Broken do it the day before. So yes, a video clip is powerful as well. Like, kids watch these matches, right, and are inspired by the skillful players, the top players. So as much videos, clips that you can get as possible. Now, the other thing too is I used to have my little routine there was once a year I would video our teams play. So I've got games from the lads playing from when they were 14, 15, 16, all the way up. Now, again, you have to do everything proper. You get the permission from the parents, you get the permission from the oppositions, things like that. But that's very, very easy to do. And it's not very expensive. And it builds up a repertoire. And it's fantastic to look back at, even from a fun point of view, charting their journey. But you pick up so much from that, from coaching, and being able to sit down with the players and show them themselves playing football. Okay, now again, once it's done properly and once it's done like player-centered, creative, open and questioning, they will learn so much from it. And again, I found that myself, them two things, bringing them to see games and bringing and showing and videoing a match every year, perfect. But in terms of showing players a skill executed perfectly by a top class player. Very, very powerful. Like for instance, nothing wrong with showing any forwards or young forwards, boys or girls, Conor McManus's feet cut movements, because a lot of people talk about feet cuts and they might turn around and say, you should be doing feet cuts here or lightning strike runs there, and the players haven't a clue what they are. So by showing them a top player executing a V cut, you can see and they learn so much from it.
Yeah, just the last one. I know we probably didn't get through all the questions, but I'm sure Colm, if anyone wants to ask you a question, or how would you help less confident players who are shying away from being involved in game plays? Something that you might do. And just the second part of it, for kickouts, who do you think the most important person is to call the kickouts, the goalkeeper or outfield players?
Right, so to go for the shy player first. So again, I mentioned this in the presentation earlier on. There's two versions that I mentioned. So the one of them is hot reviews, and the other one is AAR, after action review. So again, if people were listening, catch players in. So that's a very, very important coaching tool. So catch players in. So the second you see that shy player doing something really, really good, you have to catch them in and reinforce it straight away with a hot review. Why did you do that? That was brilliant. Okay. What did you see? You know, how did you feel after that? Right. So that's how you kind of bring the shy player out. Okay. Another way of doing it really is you've got to practice kind of stupid skills like double ball soloing, keep you uppies, dummy solos, which are left foot and right foot, things like that. And anytime you see a shy kind of player doing anything positive, you're in straight away. You're catching them in. That's a great way of building their confidence. And again, always add value to your comments, as I keep saying. So you would say, if you've done a dummy solo in a game, that would buy you a yard to get your shot away or get the pass away, things like that. The kickouts calls is, at a young age, it's the goalkeeper that directs it, as I said. But what you really want to do is you want to get away from little or no calls, and all based on non-verbal communication. So again, it would be movement. So you could have predetermined move planned. You could have your number 5, as I said to you earlier, darting towards the middle, right, to vacate that space, and then darting back, right. And what happens is it's a domino effect. If one person moves one way, other people can move other directions. Like a lot of Dublin, you see a lot of Dublin, even Galway's kickouts, they have certain kickouts where all the players start outside the 45, and as the keeper addresses the ball, they all start moving in different directions back into their positions, creating chaos and creating options. So I would kind of try to get away from actual verbal calls and look for non-verbal calls, and I would be looking for the outside players to make the movements first.
No, I think we leave it at that, Colm. I think we covered a lot. I'm sure if anyone wants to get you via social media with any other questions or whatever, I'm sure you'll get back to them. I'd just like to thank Colm, an excellent presentation. I've already started getting emails thanking people for the in-depth knowledge that you have, Colm, and pass the message on. An excellent presentation. For anyone else, I think we've still up on 270 logged in so far, so you must have kept them all engaged pretty well. I think the average was around 330 the whole way through. So obviously this is part 1 of our coaching conference. Colm done an excellent job tonight, and we've Stephen Rochford next Monday night. So stay tuned next Monday night. If you haven't already registered for Stephen next week, I think the majority of people logged or registered for both. So you'll get your link sent out to you next Monday afternoon. And thanks again, Colm. Excellent knowledge, and best of luck with your coaching with your teams in 2021. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much, Shane. Thanks. See you, everybody.